Hey, how's it going, folks? Well, this is the latest episode here, Thursday evening. Wrestling News Today. Catch us daily, WrestlingNewsToday.com, HealByNature.com. Here on YouTube, all your favorite podcast apps, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music Podcasts, and all that good stuff. Let's get right into the wrestling news. I guess the bigger story of the day has to be with NXT Call Ups. There's two NXT stars who are expected to join the main roster. The first being Damian Priest. We did speak on this before, how Damian Priest was scheduled to be a part of an angle at last week's SmackDown. That was nixed. Dave Meltzer did state that he was originally planning on teaming with Kevin Owens to face Jey Uso and Roman Reigns during last week's broadcast of SmackDown. Those plans were ultimately nixed. I'm not sure if they still plan on having Damian Priest on SmackDown or if he will go to Raw. I guess your guess is as good as mine at this point. WWE does have plans to bring him up to the main roster following his loss against Karrion Kross during NXT New Year's Evil. Another star, Rhea Ripley, is expected to join the main roster following her loss to Raquel Gonzalez, basically ending her chapter on the black and yellow brand. She did have that loss during New Year's Evil. So two new stars coming from NXT to the main roster, either Raw or SmackDown. It'll be interesting to see how they use both of those NXT talent, and both of them made a name for themselves in NXT. Obviously, Rhea Ripley a little bit more than Damian Priest, but Damian Priest has really showed and proved himself in NXT. Next story we got to talk about is Rey Fenix having some issues getting a trademark locked in with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. We have obtained some documentation from the United States Trademark Office. It does say that they have denied the filing for Rey Fenix's trademark. He originally filed trademark for the name Rey Fenix last August, and then this past January 5th, Trademark Office denied the filing, basically saying there's a few issues with it, most of it clerical with documentation, but the biggest one is the fact that Lucha Libre FMV does own the trademark for the name Phoenix, and Lucha Libre FMV is a joint venture between Lucha Libre AAA and Factory Made Ventures. So they own the rights of all the AAA trademarks outside of Mexico. Side note, those two entities are currently involved in a legal battle for a lot of money and revenue for things made in the USA as far as revenue with streaming, with Twitch, YouTube, different things like that. So that is a separate case, but it does look like Rey Fenix is going to have 6 months to basically clear up any confusion they have with that trademark in order for him to secure it and own that trademark. As far as Timothy Thatcher goes, there was an injury reported ahead of NXT New Year's Evil. Basically, William Regal said Timothy Thatcher was injured, couldn't have that fight pit match against Tommaso Ciampa. That is actually all a part of a storyline, according to Mike Johnson over at PW Insider. So Timothy Thatcher isn't actually injured. It is just a storyline, and I guess they're going to have that match in the weeks to come. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see when they actually do that. But it is part of the storyline that Timothy Thatcher was injured. Moving on to Royal Rumble, the big event, January 31st. There's been talks over the last few months whether or not they will have fans at this year's Royal Rumble. Obviously, there's been some reports out there indicating Vince McMahon just really wants fans back. But according to John Alba at Spectrum Sports and Living the Gimmick podcast, it doesn't look like there's going to be any fans in attendance for this year's Royal Rumble at Tropicana Field. Basically, we do know AEW does run limited capacity events, and the Super Bowl in Tampa will have limited capacity at Raymond James, but WWE has made the decision not to have any fans at this year's Royal Rumble. Whether or not they're going to do that for WrestleMania, that remains to be seen. WrestleMania, as we've reported in the past, is not going to be happening in Los Angeles this year, although WWE has yet to announce that. It does look like it's going to be happening in Tampa. I would suspect WWE would want some sort of audience there. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that one does pan out. Speaking of WWE, we got to talk about Legends Night for a minute here, as there was some reports of certain WWE legends who weren't in attendance. A lot of people are wondering why they weren't in attendance, one being Candice Michelle and the other one being Carlito. First, Candice Michelle, she did speak to Wrestling Inc. about her not appearing, and she basically stated that she didn't make the cut and she was falsely promoted and she wasn't asked to even be there, as WWE did advertise her, but they didn't ask for her to be there. So it's kind of interesting. Carlito has a similar situation where he was called by WWE and he just didn't like what they were planning for him. So he said, he passed on it, and WWE still advertised him. Mike Johnson spoke on that situation over at PW Insider, basically stating that Carlito found out he was just going to have a 2-minute cameo, and he decided he didn't want to travel across the country for a 2-minute cameo. He said, if he was going to wrestle or do something else, he would be interested, but he didn't want to travel across the country for that, and WWE still advertised him. So that's an interesting situation, as somebody jumped the gun advertising a lot of these legends, and some of them didn't even show up. We're going to end it with some more ROH talent who have resigned. Bateman has resigned with Ring of Honor, as well as Amy Rose. Earlier this week, we did speak about Mark Haskins and Badnito, who did sign new deals with the promotion. That's going to do it for today, folks. As always, you can listen to all the episodes on YouTube, Heel by Nature, or WrestlingNewsToday.com. We'll take you straight to our podcast page, or as always, all the news throughout the day, every day at HeelByNature.com.